Well, good evening. So I'm here to talk about some of the basic tenets of tactical implementation when it comes to converting critics, skeptics, and cynics. I deal in the arena of public policy, and public policy affects every one of your clients, whether you know it or not. You know, I don't know if any of you work on the McDonald's account, but it used to be with McDonald's, it was all about sales. It's about how many hamburgers could you push? Now, can we take breakfast to 24/7? And right in the middle of this whole battle about whether or not we're going to continue to sell hamburgers to kids and Happy Meals, etc., along comes this public policy issue that's being implemented across the country of a $15 an hour wage, minimum wage issue, now affecting dozens or hundreds of thousands of franchisees across the country, impacting what's a very thin marginal line for profit, selling hamburgers and profit for the business owner, the franchise operator. And so there's a movement across this country now from labor advocates now to raise the minimum wage across from everybody. And I got to tell you, I personally have a problem with a high school kid making $15 an hour just to say, would you like fries with that? I mean, there's something that goes across the grain for me on that one. And so these are kind of the areas that we talk about in terms of policy. Coalition building, community engagement, mobilization, money and politics, they go together. We deal in the area of policy again, impacting. Here are some of the, if you look at public policy, building coalitions, converting shareholders, leadership development, media communications, policy research, education of the public, community organizing are all part of what's affecting public policy and the direction it's going to go in. Public affairs is the term used to describe an organization's relationship with its stockholders or stakeholders. Public affairs practitioners engage in stakeholders in order to explain their organization's policies, provide statistical, factual information, mobilize communities, build coalitions and advocates on issues which could impact the organization's ability to operate successfully and, of course, ultimately the bottom line. Coalition building, PA works to combine government relations, media relations, issues management, corporate social responsibility, information dissemination, and strategic communications advice. And of course, the aim here is to impact the court of public opinion. Public affairs and community engagement combines government relations, again, media relations, issues management. I would add reputation management, community engagement, coalition building, corporate social responsibility, and of course, strategic communications advice. So the question you have to ask you is, who do you want to reach? Who do you want to empower? Who do you want to influence? And ultimately, who do you want to educate when it comes to that issue? Bottom line, block and tackle, coalition building. We will go door to door in a neighborhood. If there's an issue that impacts our client in a particular area, I'm going to suggest that perhaps there's a company that wants to build a factory in a community, but there's a pushback on the community because the neighborhoods don't want the pollution, the traffic, the perceived problems that come with that. We will go door to door, actually build a coalition from local communities, because it's those folks who are going to ultimately go to the city council or the county board of supervisors or the state legislature to say yes, thumbs up or thumbs down, yea or nay on a particular project. So it's very tedious work, but you need to mobilize communities to support your client moving forward. Community mobilization, getting people to act. You know, once you get the people together and get them on your side, you've done your surveys, you've knocked on the doors, you gather signatures, then you need to mobilize them into action. And if you look at the bottom of that slide, Black Lives Matter is probably one of the premier templates now for community mobilization. People are gathering. It's now a national movement. Every time there's a questionable killing or shooting by a police officer, a law enforcement officer, Black Lives Matter is there if blacks are engaged or the victims of. Very early on in my career in public relations, I was engaged in a major campaign at Hill and Knowlton. Those of you may remember, there was a perceived trade war between Japan and the United States, and President Clinton was closing in on the end of his first term. And the UAW and the big three automakers, General Motors included, in Detroit, were really pressing on the president to open up the markets in Japan for American products. And so we were representing the Japanese auto manufacturers in the U.S., and I got to tell you, it was a tough battle. The president had an 80% favorable rating to go after Japan on this issue. You had bipartisan support, Republicans and Democrats. It was the U.S. versus Japan, easy trade target. And we knew early on that there's no way that we could spend enough money to get the public to turn around. But we knew that California was key to the president. If he's going to run for his second term, he needed California and the electoral votes to go with that. And so we mounted a campaign that was focused in California specific to get people riled up. We got a study from the Los Angeles Economic Development Corporation that basically said if this trade war escalated, 250,000 Californians are going to be out of jobs because, you know, Japan would retaliate with American products that would blow up. And so before you knew it, the president's favorability factor went from 80% in California to 60% in a matter of 2 months. And so all of a sudden the White House started saying, nah, maybe you don't want to go this route. So to make a long story short, when it came to the battle, Mickey Cantor, who at that time was the U.S. State Representative, talked to Mr. Hashimoto, who at the time was the State Representative, went on to become Prime Minister, and consequently there was an agreement signed on the eve of the imposed trade sanctions, and those trade sanctions were 100% tariffs on Japanese luxury automobiles. So Lexus, Acura, all of those cars, you're going to have to pay a lot more money. And so this was my quote when the battle started. I was actually working out of our war room in Toyota down in Torrance every day. And when it first hit, the president just fired the first salvo in a trade war with Japan. Unfortunately, it landed in California. And 250 Californians are now the victims of friendly fire. They are sadly collateral damage. That got quoted everywhere. It also got me in trouble with the White House when they called my boss, who was Clinton's congressional advisor, and say, what is your pit bull doing out in California? I was making him look bad. But the reality is there was a trade war, and you know, there were certain trade-offs. So in essence, I have to say Japan won that one, unfortunately, but you know, they were my client at the time and I applauded. So the continuing looming battles that we see, they're going to continue on and play out in the public policy arena. Unions versus corporate America, developers versus neighborhoods, environmentalists versus fossil fuels, public schools versus charter schools. These are major battles that are happening now, and you're going to see them escalate as we go into the presidential election. So there is opportunity. Whichever side you pick, there's an opportunity because both sides have public relations campaigns, both sides have public affairs campaigns, and have coalition building moving forward. So I'll leave the questions for when we open it up, but that's my presentation. Thank you so much.